Okay, good evening. Today is March 26th. It is 6 p.m. This is the Planning Advisory Board meeting, and we'll call the meeting to order. And before we get started, we do have a new member. And I would like to introduce Michael DePietro, representing Council District 6.
Thank you.
Welcome aboard, Michael.
I'm very appreciative and I look forward to working with everybody.
Thank you. Michael, if you could give us a little bit of your background.
Sure. I was born and raised in Laurel. I recently moved to Annapolis. I'm an Arundel Community College graduate. I'm a University of Maryland graduate. I spent the last 15 years in the civil construction world, specifically most of those years working in and around Anne Arundel County. So yeah, I'm thrilled to be here, honored to be here, and look forward to working with everybody.
Thank you very much. Yeah, I'm going to do roll call. If you're here, please mark present. Melanie.
Present.
Elizabeth.
Present.
Michael.
President.
Myself, Gus. And let's check online. It looks like I see Van Mason. Hi, Van.
Hi, how are you?
Good. Edward Evans. And Lawrence Blevins.
Present.
Not Lauren.
Okay, we have 6 members present. We have a quorum. So we're going to look for a motion to approve the agenda at this time.
So moved.
I
Second.
second.
Thank you. A motion has been made to approve the agenda. All in favor?
Aye.
Any nays? The agenda is approved. Next is a motion, need a motion to approve the minutes from February 21st and February 28th.
I move.
Yeah. Minutes from February 21st to February 28th.
Second.
A motion's been made to approve the minutes. All in favor?
Aye.
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 Any nays? The minutes are approved. So tonight's agenda mainly consists of our PAB deliberations of the fiscal year 26 CIP budget requests. The PAB will discuss the various budget requests and offer recommendations to bring the budget closer to affordability. This is a continuation of our discussion started on February 28th and will be guided by the Office of Budget, Mrs. Naomi. And before we get started, we'll turn the floor over to County Executive Pittman.
All right.
The floor is yours.
Okay, maybe I can sit like this and am I on camera? Do I want to be on camera?
You are right there.
Okay, I'm on camera. All right, great. Well, it's good to see all of you who are with us virtually and those of you who are here in person. I'm mostly here because I haven't been. You know, I do go to some boards and commissions. I go once a year when they do their annual report. I suppose there's some I haven't been to, but you all do so much work and it's such important work and so sort of central to the future of the county and present that I feel like I should check in from time to time. But mostly because I want to thank you because you all work, I think, probably as hard or harder than any other board or commission because you have such a large portfolio. Right now you're in the midst of the capital budget. I'm in the midst of the operating budget, which is why I have a Band-Aid on my head. I was slamming it against the wall, trying to figure out where I could find some money. No, actually, I walked into a lamppost today as I was trying to look across the street and talk to somebody. But I'm fine. Just had to stop the bleeding. So thank you for all the work that you do on the budget. Obviously, it's the detailed work. You do it with staff. Naomi is amazing. The budget office is amazing. You know how the process works, and I think it's a great process. We've been really, really blessed that we've had a lot of money for capital projects in recent years. A lot of that federal money. We've been lucky that our tax base has been growing, and we've had a lot to work with. It's been a good run since I've been in office. When COVID came, we thought things were gonna really contract. And they did for a short period and then they expanded again. And so we tightened our belts and then got back to the business of really catching up on our capital projects that we had for years said that we needed to do. So I feel really good about that we are, I mean, obviously on our school budget, our school capital, projects, we've made huge progress. An incredible number of rec and park projects, just basic infrastructure projects, and we're doing pretty well. We've been doing pretty well with the state, getting their support for, some of our bottlenecks and some of our roads. And, it feels a little like the COVID year where it feels like the contraction may be coming. We don't know, it's so much uncertain, just like it was then. But thank you for, being fiscally conservative and fiscally responsible, as you look at that. We have tough decisions to make. But then the other part of the, part that I like more talking about is land use, long range planning and the work that the planning and zoning team does on that. Because that really is exciting to think about the future of the county and what direction it's moving. And I want to acknowledge that we're in a sort of a weird time, where we in our county we had a long history of doing the concept of smart growth in our general development plans. And the plan that y'all approved, I guess some of you are here, some maybe not yet, Plan 2040, I felt really good about. It was one of the things coming into office I knew would be probably the most important thing I would do long term is Plan 2040. And it, we talk about it as greener, smarter, more equitable. And those three goals, those three approaches, those three lenses through which we can look at them, to me are really important. And I think they're all things that we can aggressively pursue. And so we got that done. We do our annual implementation reports that I think are really fun to read because we're actually making progress on a lot of that. And then maybe the most exciting to me is that we're doing the region plans too. We've got our 9 regions and we've got the stakeholder groups and I think we've been really intentional about who we appoint both to this board and to those stakeholder groups. And while I've heard frustrations, of course, because whenever you're talking about land use, there's conflict. But I've heard a lot of really good stories about, the excellent work of staff, and stories about people who walk into the room with totally different priorities and totally different approaches, figuring out how to compromise and do things. And the part that is the most challenging is when we now recognize that we have a huge shortage of housing. And everybody nationally, the state of Maryland, and locally is saying, our businesses are saying, we need housing, we need places for our employees to work. We have the jobs, we don't have the workers, and so housing becomes very important. It used to be that, I think, for a lot of county executives and county councils, the kind of development everybody wanted was commercial because it was good for the tax base, and you didn't have to build the schools and all the things that you have to build when you bring people in and families. But now we're saying that there's not a market for some of the commercial development that, we don't need a whole lot more malls. We don't need a whole lot more retail. We've got a lot of that, and the market for that isn't as good as the market for housing, which the supply is way lower than demand. So that's necessitated a shift in how we do our planning. And you've noticed it for me, you've noticed it on the county council and some of the legislation that's come forth, making it easier to do residential and allowing a developer who has a parcel, whether it's redevelopment or mixed use, particularly mixed use, allowing them to do more housing and less commercial because there's no market for it. And so I know that creates, necessitates a change in thinking, and some people are enthusiastic about that. Some people are less enthusiastic about that, concerned about whether we have the adequate public facilities and all of the things that we need to have more housing. And we have deliberately put people on the PAB who approach it differently. We know that some of you are more worried about the impacts Some of you are more eager to get the housing done. And then some of you are really focused on the environmental side of things and keeping things green and the natural beauty of Anne Arundel County, which is one of the big reasons people want to live here, and caring about nature. And then some of you are very focused on smart growth concepts where we just make sure that we manage our growth so that it's in the places where we have the infrastructure. And so I felt like Anne Arundel County is done pretty well compared to other jurisdictions. Other jurisdictions in Maryland, a lot of county leaders come to me and state people come in and say, wow, you've managed to aggressively move on some housing policies, particularly affordable housing policies, and you've aggressively moved on environmental policies. How do you do that? And my answer is that we've engaged residents and we've almost built an army of people through these stakeholder committees, but we already had an army of people engaged in neighborhood organizations who really started thinking hard about this. I remember when we first came in, we brought in Smart Growth America, and you remember that. It was you know, we made a lot of changes. The last administration has started the process, but the room was filled with people who cared about land use, and people really did think about it and open their minds and saw pictures of you know, density, and maybe it wasn't such a dirty word after all. If you're using, you know, doing the density in a way that's livable communities, walkable communities, it's good for the environment, and then you're protecting open space. So we've kind of built, I think, a coalition. It's not always a easy coalition to hold together, but we've got environmental advocates who really care about housing that are active, and we've got housing advocates that recognize that Anne Arundel County, we're not going to just get rid of the zoning code. We're not going to just do sprawl development all over again. We're not going to just let anybody who has a piece of land build whatever they want on that piece of land. We're going to maintain the tradition that we have of protecting our natural environment, basic principles of smart growth. And that's not always easy because not everybody agrees on those things. But I feel as though y'all get it, and you compromise on it. And then there are times when there's legislation that is before the council, sometimes that we've introduced, sometimes that we've not introduced. And y'all are pretty knowledgeable because you do the plans, the long range planning. And there's a question about your role as whether you should, you know, speak up on those. Generally, traditionally, you have been the ones who do the long range plan, you know, make recommendations on those plans and the capital budget. The way I see it, maybe other county executives might be different on this in the future, but the way I see it is that any board or commission should feel welcome to share their expertise and comment on legislation. So I know the Ag Commission, most of what they do is actually legislative, and they're always coming up with bills and they're asking us to introduce them and then commenting on bills. Some do none of that kind of work. It's up to you guys whether you want to weigh in, but I welcome your opinion, obviously, because you know a lot about land use. So when that's the case, obviously, you know, you function as a body, make a decision as to whether you want to support something or oppose something or anything like that. There's so much of it, and sometimes it's coming from, sometimes it just shows up from a council member, brings it forward, and we don't know until the last minute that it's even coming. We have got, most of the council members are pretty good about going to staff and running significant land use bills through staff if they need the help. So I can't guarantee that you're going to know about everything, but everybody knows, the community groups certainly know how to play that game. And y'all should feel welcome to play that game too. Your opinion is your opinion. And the council will listen to you where they want, just like any other person. I will listen to you, or I won't, or I will agree with you, or I won't. I'll let you know how I feel. But so I want you to at least feel comfortable that even though you're not set up as where we have a requirement to run everything through you, we have a lot of, you know, we're trying to streamline government processes. We're trying to make things efficient. That sometimes is a good idea, sometimes it's not a good idea, but It is always, there are mostly through the council, a lot of community engagement, there's a structure for that. We have made a practice of sharing what we're thinking about big bill, with stakeholder groups in advance. And there's no reason why we can't share some of that in advance with you if you ask us to, have to pick your battles, pick your issues. So I think, you're welcome to do that. I talked to some of you one-on-one. You guys can, feel free to contact me. You don't feel like you have to ask questions as a group. But mostly, I just want to sort of acknowledge all of those tensions and acknowledge the pressure you all are under sometimes. It's sort of I shouldn't say amusing, but it's interesting to watch sometimes when the stakeholder advisory committee has considered a zoning change, and then it gets, or maybe they haven't because it wasn't even proposed. It gets to you, and suddenly those sorts of people are there. But they're going to show up at council as well. You never know when a community is going to activate on an issue, and what I hope, and what I've seen is that you balance the local neighborhood perspective with the countywide needs, and y'all just have to make your own decisions. But I've been really, really impressed by the work that you've done, and that it seems like you get along with each other, which is helpful too. And your leadership has been, part of that. So that's all I had to say. I'm happy to answer any questions. Want to discuss anything? I know you have a lot of other work to do. It's kind of urgent.
Well, first, I want to thank you for keeping the board full. As I know it's not easy to find members out there that have, one, the knowledge and also have the time to give to the amount of work it takes on this board. So it is really important that we have the 7 members, and thanks for keeping that up, because we haven't really had a lack of membership for a long time. So that's one. And second, I would say the most challenging part of this board has been probably in the last year or two been the comprehensive rezoning. It's tough and it's personal, and it's a lot. So I'll be glad when comprehensive rezoning is.
We have it all spread out, so it never ends.
Start over
But
again.
I will say that with all the board members that we have, it's so great to have the input of everybody. And we do get along. We don't always agree, but we make decisions. And we can always agree to disagree and move forward and go from there. And then the staff, our support from everyone at P&Z and Michael and Jesse, I mean, they're just remarkable. And the budget and Naomi and Dave, everybody does a great job and gives us all the tools we need to make decisions. So
I think we work good as a team, and we make compromises when they need to be made.
yeah, we have mutual respect for everybody too, everyone's opinions. So,
Yeah, that's such a great example for the residents and the politicians.
yeah.
We got to do the same. Yeah.
Any other comments?
I guess
ahead.
I did want to make one comment.
Yeah, what you got, man?
When you mentioned about representation or board members speaking at the county council, is there any issue with us speaking individually, or should we come to some type of consensus as a board before we do go before the county council when it's on a particular topic? I think that was some confusion as to, who are we speaking for? Are we speaking for our individual districts, or are we speaking as a PAB member with the consensus of the board? Do you
Yeah,
want-
I think Yeah, it has to be clear. I know that some of you are part of, I think you're involved in the realtors and, people are part of different organizations that they might be speaking. So if you all want to make a policy among yourselves that you don't speak to the council independently, you can, that's up to you all. But, it's important that if you're a member of the PAB, you're clear, who you're speaking for, whether it's the PAB or whether it's a resident or whether it's another organization.
Okay.
I think, another thing we do, we can have some really involved, and when we're making those compromises, we have really good discussions, and dig into the details. We all bring our different perspective and our different expertise, and that's really important. I think an example of that is the open space issue as we're diving into the regional plans, and there's the consistency changes, and we question that. And as you know, I represented the environmental community at large for Plan 2040, and now I'm more represent Region 9, District 7, whichever one we're talking about but we having that discussion and talking through our concerns and discussing that with you and making sure that we incorporate into our opinions and our presentation back to the council, to you and the council, and sharing that information. So restricting some of those open space consistency changes is really important. I think it can be pushed further. I think that we made the motion to not reduce the open space and not follow that particular consistency guideline that was being proposed in the region plans. And I know that letters that have gone out to those property owners don't represent exactly what our motion was. It's that they have I actually have one up here. It's that they have a 20%, anything that's let's see, so I get it right. Any recommending parcels over 20% split zoned with open space, are considered. So I think that we maybe missed a little bit of our mark with that in actuality when it went into effect after it left our table here. But
That's because it went through me.
So you did that.
Well, I agreed to it.
You agreed to it?
Yeah. I think the issue there was hard because the best practice for a planner is to not have these split zones. And but we have a history in Anne Arundel County of people not trusting that the environmental protections are actually going to be implemented. And that's been a subject of the conversation that we've been having with some stakeholders about the NPDU bill, which has the non-NPDU parts of it. If we don't trust that the next administration or the one after that is going to actually apply those environmental regulations, they're going to start giving modifications,
Right.
Willy-nilly, then we have to do something else to protect the open space, which would be the zoning, or something else. So I've actually had conversations with some council members and staff about taking some of the things that we put in our green notice, which is our OPD, like I said, this is the way we're going to implement, this is the way that we see the law, and this is the way that we're going to implement. And one of those that was a major change earlier in our administration was that we're not going to give modifications on environmental features unless there's something to compensate for the loss to the environmental to nature, to the environment from the change. And so my question is, well, if we're doing that and it's working, can we figure out a way to put that into code, to codify it, so that people, so that you can't give modifications for those sorts of things? And so we're looking at that. And I've talked to some council members who like that idea. So it's the same thing. So let's be aggressive about protecting what we say we want to protect, especially the stuff that's in our green infrastructure network. I mean, we have said that we don't want development at all. We're saying we actually want land trusts and things to preserve and protect that land for perpetuity. So we have to be very careful about some of those. So I hope that we can introduce some aggressive protections that people will trust. So that we don't have to keep going back to this thing of, oh, well, we don't believe in those because you can give a mod and somebody, and you, so, that's the way, we're approaching that, but we did go back on a lot of those open space split zones, and did send out a lot of letters on that. And yeah, difficult conversations that we should have all been clear on the approach in the beginning. And I take the blame for that we should have just, I think, probably not gone down the path. But we went partly down the path, and that made it more difficult for everybody. Of the path of upzoning.
Right, yeah. Well, thank you for sharing that perspective. That's important. And I think you bring up another really good thing, and that is what I think the administration thought and what I know that we thought was the MPDU bill that really was a housing attainability bill, which was a very different bill when it came out, and was not allowed to have any amendments to help to tweak it and refine it based on
Well, and I was uncomfortable with that too. I had a letter to the council that night saying, yes, I will sign this bill if it passes tonight, because I feel that strongly about the MPDU program and I don't want to lose it. We tried to get it a year ago. I'm not comfortable with some of the things that are in there. And then we've had some meetings, it's been part of them. And I sent out a letter to everybody who was part of that saying, I am uncomfortable with some aspects of that bill. I don't see a clear path to get it changed through the council right now, but if a council member, introduces legislation to do so, there are parts of it that I would like to change. Like, I don't think that we should be, giving the developer the benefit of higher density and increase the value of their land if they're not doing any MPUs. My understanding has been it was going to be only for the MP. And I particularly am worried about green infrastructure network areas. And they're mapped, they're in every council district, they're spread out across the county. A lot of it is the dark green, which is already protected. But then there's the part that is not protected. And we know that Scenic Rivers Land Trust and others, it's on their list to acquire. They really would like to protect it. But in the meantime, let's not have an incentive to do higher density development in these areas. So those are policy issues that I hope we can address in policy. But yes, I would have done that bill differently. And I've said that before.
Yeah. Thank you. Keep on it.
Follow up on that, because you and I have had these discussions as well, and the PDU was difficult. I think also it put additionally, all the text amendments that have been going through the county council have added times that we were in region plans and making decisions when we were waiting for decisions to be made by a text amendment at the county council.
Yeah.
And had we had that information ahead of time, we would have changed our opinions on those region plans.
Yeah.
And several of those, I mean, at least 4 or 5 region plans went through that are now going to be changed by these text amendments.
Right.
And we didn't know. And the latest one was in Region 1 when we were talking about Brooklyn Park and trying to figure out what was going to happen there. So it's made our job very, very difficult.
Yeah, and I don't know what is a good time to do text amendments of legislation that changes what could be developed in certain zoning districts. Whether before or after, some say, oh, don't do it until we've done our rezoning. And others say, but if you do it after the rezoning, then you're changing what the zoning means. So whatever you do, it does change what the zoning means. And the council is the legislative body. We introduced some bills to the council. We had a list of things that we wanted to change to make it, I hope it's all easier to do the development. We say we want done, and harder to do the development. We say we don't want done, and those bills are part of that. But I've heard people say, no, I won't support that bill because we haven't done comp rezoning yet. And then you have other people who say, well, we can't do that because we just did comp rezoning. Changes what we did.
Yeah, and we have those 3 region plans that have already gone through.
Right.
That now those decisions that we made on zoning and everything else will change.
Right, so that's. the
And we
after
may
the
have
study.
changed
Yeah.
our opinions had we known that.
Right.
And I think that that's very difficult.
Yeah.
So what's coming up? What do you
Well, I mean,
foresee
there's
is going to
there's
be?
There's a traffic APF bill that basically moves to multimodal APF, multimodal requirements. And I know they're working on that one. There's an impact fee bill, we did the impact fee study, and that's got it's a public policy question the council's gonna have to ask itself is who do we wanna have pay for the cost of development? Do we want it to be, the developer at the time of development, or do we want it to be, the whole county, because we want the development that benefits everybody? I mean, that's big, but there's a study, and basically within that study will go to the council. And I think you all know that it doesn't really change the rates much, except that it recommends that we do an impact fee for libraries and an impact fee for rec parks. So those are policy decisions that the council has to make. But we'll propose it the way it's been recommended by the consultant.
And adequate public facility studies have been completed as far as the schools and the roads. And do you see any future changes for that? For school utilizations, and I mean, we went down to 95% occupancy for
It's 100%,
capacity,
But there's the adjacency thing.
right?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, it's at 100% now. I don't see any changes in that on the horizon unless somebody introduces something that I don't know about, but the good news is that, or bad news, depending on where you live and where your kid goes to school, what you think about it is redistricting solved the problem that we had, which we had to solve.
We have to
Over
do
10,000 empty
this.
seats, and then schools at 140% capacity, and you can't get state funding for schools if they're below a certain level. So we got the county done. I think the second half is more difficult than the first, controversial. So, but I think that addresses that issue. No, and then I would hope we could do an environmental bill that would strengthen, that would try to codify some of the practices that we've been using, so that future administrations do them. I would love to stop doing land use bills.
Yeah, all of us would.
Well, but it's also streamlined. There are things that there's staff here would love, and we'd all love. I would certainly love to get rid of layers of regulation that don't have any public benefit, and there's a lot of cleanup of the code. And so we do hope to bring a bill forth before we're done that does that. Because when you think about the way legislation is done, if I'm on the county council and I have a constituent who comes to me and says, "Isn't it insane that I can't do X, Y, or Z on this parcel of land?" And I say, "Yeah, let's figure out a way to do a bill that will allow you to do that." And then it affects them. Yeah. So these layers get added to deal with specific issues, and then the next thing you know, OPZ is like, how are we supposed to just, it takes a long time to do development review because you have all these layers. So going back every few years, every 10 years, every however many years, we haven't done it a very long time, and getting rid of stuff that doesn't make any sense, it doesn't have any public benefit, I think helps our staff, and it helps anybody who's trying to do business in the county, or a house, or do anything.
Is there any look back or anything on the horizon regarding traffic impact studies?
So the question of, and I actually haven't read it, I've just gotten some answers back. The question of whether the county should be doing the studies versus reviewing the studies. I know that's been a conversation we've been having since our transition committee. I have a document I have to read that then are going to send to Gann, who asked the question, and I haven't read it yet. But I think really the easiest solution that the path of least resistance is to make sure that the review of those studies is being done carefully and well. And so you're probably not going to get a bill from us that just blows up the whole system and says, okay, we're no longer going to allow those studies to be done by those contractor that's gonna be done, the studies are gonna be done by the county. We're having trouble hiring for that level of skill. They are too, but
And lastly, trying to get information from the different county organizations and, availability of either having meetings with them or filling out public information acts or coming to review files. It used to be very easy and now it's become more and more difficult. And I'm not sure what the change has been, whether that has been from your administration down or,
well, it shouldn't be more difficult. I mean, it should be that the land use navigator and getting things online make it a whole lot easier. And I know a lot of people are using that.
that it
And
does.
it is making it possible for people to sit in their living room and if they want to spend all day
Right.
reviewing every project in the county, you know, they can do that and they couldn't do that before. And it makes everybody more accountable because you can see things move through the process and, in terms of getting meetings, I know that people spend a lot of time, there's no policy that says meet less. I mean, we're all trying to be as responsive as possible.
I think the preliminary plans, when the preliminary plans are either approved and put online and different things along the way is what is becoming, I'm just finding a little bit more challenging to
If they're not getting put up.
with the process. With the process, so.
I know, I'm not an expert on this at all, but I believe that the land use navigator, the next department that is gonna be fully connected to it is planning and zoning, is that correct?
Yes, we're working on that, with the development.
Okay, okay. We took a little pause as we were dealing with this.
Right,
Nothing
right,
was-
yeah.
But, so I think that's gonna be a huge, huge breakthrough in, accessibility to the
That would
public.
be good. Definitely needed. Thank you.
Awesome.
Any other questions, comments? With that, can you tell us how the recovery is with the cyber security? Is okay now?
Oh, well, yeah, most things are back. I mean, you know, it wasn't as bad as you might imagine. We're not allowed to say, you know, I mean, there's things I'm not allowed to say. There's things I don't know because I have things I don't understand. But the good news is that there's some 200 systems that, you know, when you have an external actor, shut everything down, right? You block everything off. So, and you separate it from the internet and people can't use it. And that's why people were having to do all these paper things, create, you know, new ways of doing things, go back to old ways of doing things. Things are back up and on. You know, there are a few things that they're being careful, you know, they're still patching some things up, some things being rebuilt, but it wasn't the disaster that you read about from Atlanta and Baltimore, you know, where the whole government is hobbled for months. Fortunately, we even managed to get payroll out.
Yeah.
That's good. Looking back at my business, we have an inventory book. And it's a number and an entry. And some of the new people that come online and say, what do you need that book for? It's everything's in a computer. Start with this book, write the number down, and then you can go to the computer.
Yeah.
And it's just for that reason. You
Yeah.
never know.
Yeah, you got it. You need it.
Okay,
All right, well, I will let you get back to
thank you very much.
budget. All that fun stuff. Thank you.
We're only 38 million. Did you bring 38 million along?
I banged my head against the wall.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening. Okay, with that, it is about 6:40, and we're going to start with our deliberations. So I'll turn the floor over to Naomi.
Good evening. Naomi
evening.
McAllister, Office of Budget. Can everyone hear me okay? Okay, great. I'm just going to share my screen. Bear with me. Okay, can everyone see my spreadsheet?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, perfect. So this year's been a little more complicated. And we've, as the county executive mentioned, some of our systems were down for a period of time. So, we've kind of had to do double time. So I will do the best I can to get through the bulk of the material that's here. But let's just first start where we left off. And this was your interim deliberations. And the number we were looking at was about $38 million over affordability. And that included some impact fees and some bond premium baked in there. And then then I discovered that the Board of Education's impact fees that were previously approved in the plan were not in the FY26 request. And that was a significant number. That was about $20 million. So I put them back. And I had to make a couple of corrections and tweaks, and there were a couple of other things. So once we got that taken care of, the interim deliberation with the impact fees, you can see here, was around $9 million. So that's great. I was so happy. I mean, I was not happy about that, but I was very happy with it. That it put us in a better position here. And then, so what I'd like to do is, a lot has happened since then. So I can speak on a high level to some of the larger adjustments to explain how we got where we got on the next screen. And then what I was thinking we could do is we could just go through my ugly spreadsheet and just make sure that you all agree with those adjustments. Or if you want to add adjustments to it, we can do so. But like I said, there's a lot of material. A lot of it is just, given this time of year, we get more information. We have a better estimate on our bond premium, VLT funding. We have a better idea of what that may be, impact fees, things like that. So there usually is a big shift between the last time you all were together and then this evening. So, okay, so let's get started here. Okay. So the first thing I would like to point out is the affordability comparison. So when you all looked, when you started, let me just go back to the screen, PAYGO was $150 million. It is now tentatively slated for $137.5 million, $137.5 million. That's not a bad thing because I have good news that's tied to it. So we'll just circle back on that in a little bit. And so that's why this number here, this PAB interim number, looks wonky, because I've reduced PAYGO. So the amount of affordability has gone down. In turn, it looks like you're over affordability here. We've made some additional adjustments, and right now, tentatively, we're slated to be about $8 or $7 million under affordability. That's layered in with a lot of things. But a couple of the big ones to speak to it. Arundel Fire Station, if you recall, we had removed that. Let me just pull up the highlighter. I think that's just an easier way to do it. Let's go with a document that we can all understand here. Okay, so let's see here. I'll make it bigger. I know it's like on a really bad setting right now. Okay, the first one, let's go with this one. Arundel Fire Station. What this report is, it's the highlighter report. Wow, it's really on some Adobe mode here. So this takes.
Give us the highlighter page number, please.
You're at the very, aren't you at the summary?
I think it's on page 7.
Okay, thank you.
Oh, actually, I'm sorry. This is a new highlighter, although it should be on page 7 for you all too.
It is.
Okay, perfect. So this highlighter report was actually given to departments so that they could really clearly see what you all had tentatively recommended and some of the other adjustments that had come in after you all met. So it takes fiscal year 25 approved, it compares it to your interim, and then it compares it to what we call the straw man. And that's what departments present to PA or the county executive. The first significant change was this Arundel Fire Station where fiscal year 31 was taken out and kind of pushed out to fiscal year 32. And that was predominantly due to affordability. And because of some additional information that's come in now that we're a little more in range of affordability, this scenario actually puts it back in. So the fire department is very happy about having their fiscal year 31 program money. That's the first big one. There's only a couple. This one here. Okay. This one is Quiet Waters Rehab. It's on page 12. And if you recall, in fiscal year 27, we reduced that number by $5 million. And there were several reasons tied to that you all had mentioned. But in this scenario, we added that back. So that's something to keep in the back of your mind. The other significant change is on page 29 with regard
Naomi,
to, yes,
Sorry, before you skip the going back to what we were just talking about, which was Quiet Waters.
yes.
You said that you added back in because that's found money, or why did you add that back in?
So that money was added back as an adjustment made by the Oversight Committee for departments to present to the county executive. So, you know, the decision was made by the committee to replenish that request back to its original ask, even though you had recommended a reduction. So, and again, this is something we can change because this is your recommendation. I'm just showing you the significant changes in it.
Okay. They discuss it.
Okay.
I'm sorry, I
Okay.
can't hear you.
No,
No,
that's okay. I said that's fine. Go ahead, keep going.
Okay. And then the next significant change is the Board of Education. Now, I should let you know that the board presented to the county executive and the Office of Budget sat down with Anne Arundel County Public Schools, and we worked together and crafted a plan. So the plan that is in the this draft mode that you're looking at is something that we've worked together, you know, to achieve. They had reversions. They also wanted some funding to go back to some other areas, some capital projects that they're like, no, we really need this money here. And then they also said, no, we don't really need this money here. We're redistricting. So they made actually a lot of adjustments. It net zero after the reversions and the givebacks and the asks that they requested. We'll go through it. That was net zero. The other change, well, that was significant, was Ruth Parker Eason. Originally, what did I just do? Oh, wait, bear with me. I was a little click happy there. Originally, you all, you know, acknowledged the importance of this project. And due to affordability, you kind of restructured it and had it started in fiscal year 29. And working with, you know, the school system, we tentatively pushed it out to fiscal year 31, and they were comfortable with that decision. So the plan that you see with the Board of Education, you know, we met with Matt Stansky and Bill and Kyle and worked together to try and pull this together to make sure everyone's needs were being met. So just want to make that statement. So those are like the three really big things. Like this Eason project, which is new, it was not previously approved, is really allowing us to take in Arundel Fire Station and Reckham Park's Quiet Water is $5 million. So those are the most significant changes. There are a lot of little changes, which we will go through. Most of them are very boring and not very exciting, but I just wanted to try and do that on a high level because there's a lot of adjustments. So before we get started, are there any questions in the process? Do you feel comfortable with me moving through the material this way?
Okay, Naomi, I have two things. One, South River Farm Park improvements, P 000625.
What page are you on?
That's in Rexham Park. The highliner on page 10.
Yep.
And it's the second project. We cut all the funding out for that.
Yes.
Okay, I want to put that back in. It's $1 million, and that was their number 2 project.
Okay, so we're,
Based on Melanie's conversation with Jessica,
mhm.
that's not really park improvements that's going to increase traffic. That's more maintenance needs, and it really is needed.
Okay, so let's go back to this here. Okay, I've made a note. I'm just going to start from the worksheet and go down. And so when we get to Rec and Parks, I've made note to add that. Okay. Okay, so now these are the additional adjustments that happen between your interim recommendation and that being $6 million under affordability. So I'm just going to start with the general. Yes.
Naomi, I'm sorry, can I ask a question before you said something before about I'd like to go back and revisit the Board of Ed and them coming back, because we had some conversations here in-house about how they have their top 25 or whatnot that they show us. And, you know, we noodled and we inadvertently cut some of, didn't fund all of those of their tops, that we may have inadvertently funded some that were lower on their list. Can you just tell me from a procedural point of view, did they add back?
Yes,
in
we'll
to their
go to
top-
Rec and Parks now, like to make it.
Board of Ed.
Yeah, I'm sorry. It's been a long day. Board of Ed, yes. Okay, so we'll just cover that right now. So
Okay.
all day pre-K, they felt that this was an important program and they have requested that we add back $2.5 million. So we did that.
Okay, the original request was 5, so we're doing half.
Yes, wait, let me look here. Bear with me.
Page 28.
Page 20, thank you.
So I believe what happened is that at the interim, you all reduced the request by 2.5 million. You cut it in half.
Right.
So what Naomi is saying is that they added that 2.5 million back in to get them to that full 5.
But full funding, yes.
Oh.
And where was that on their list of
wait.
priorities?
Number 3.
Number 3. So when they do that, where's it coming from?
So every year, the Board of Education has capital projects that come to a conclusion, and there's savings realized to those. And it kind of just goes back into the bucket of the Board of Education. Well, not really, but those savings realized, they have requested to be reallocated to other capital projects that they feel are really important. So they've requested, the savings, which was around 10 million bucks, be redistributed to some of the multi-year capital projects. And so this is their request in sitting down with them.
Okay.
Okay, Naomi,
But how
our
do we know how
question,
much money is in their bucket that they
We
can
have
take themselves?
we have a green highlighter on that. So is that state grant money also in that 5 million?
No, I don't believe so, but let me just double check before.
Yeah, it doesn't make, there's something green on them.
It says state grant.
What was green?
So usually in this particular capital project, there is IAC funding tied to it. However, in fiscal year 26, there is not any IAC funding tied to it.
How about the future years out?
Yeah, so they have a placeholder of IAC funding right here of about, it's proportionate to the amount that they're requesting. So they're requesting $5 million, the IAC would give, put in $2 million. So there's a proportion there. However, this $5 million request that they're asking for, there is no IAC money projected.
Just for the first year.
Correct. Yeah, and the out years are they're just placeholders. They always change. The IEC always changes their numbers. So it's anywhere between 25 and $35 million of IAC funding in the budget year, which in this instance is fiscal year 26. So this is just not one of the projects that's on the list for fiscal year 26.
So I have another question. When you were talking about this bucket that they have in savings and they can put it back in, for example, all daycare and pre-K, we're giving them 2.5, they're taking 2.5 out of that bucket to make it 5. Am I correct?
Correct. Yes.
Okay. So this is the first, and I've been doing this, what, I've 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 notebooks here. This is the first I've heard of this bucket that they
Oh.
can go back and put arbitrarily where they want. Well, what happens if we said, no, we're gonna cut all of it? Are they gonna have 5 million that they can pull from the bucket to put back into this fund?
So you would be able to make your recommendation this evening and it would be documented. And then, of course, the county executive comes out with his proposed budget on May 1st, and they're usually a little tweak between your recommendation and his proposed budget. So there's always that potential. Although, generally speaking, I mean, the bulk of your recommendations are in there. So it's noted, is my point.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, moving on to health and safety. They requested an additional $350,000 in fiscal year 26. So that is increased to the $1.2 million.
Wait,
sorry.
are we health and safety of Board of Ed?
Yes,
Are we still on page 20?
Page 28, line item 4.
Oh, I see, okay, sorry, thank you. Thank you.
so $350,000 for health and safety. They asked for an increase to their security related upgrades of $750,000. In maintenance backlog, they requested an additional $2.175 million. The numbers do come down as we move down the page. For roof replacement, they requested an additional $2 million. For school bus replacement, they requested an additional $200,000. For vehicle replacement, they requested an additional $175,000. The capital project additions, they removed the $2.1 million, so they are not asking for anything in this capital project. Athletic stadium improvements, they requested that $1.4 million be added onto the PAB interim recommendation. They requested that driveway and parking lots receive an additional $1 million from PAB recommended.
Naomi, I have a question that you can clarify. Under additions, project 54,920. So they had requested 4 million, and is that now?
I'm sorry, you broke up there.
Okay, they had requested 4 million for 26. Is that request now moved to 0 under additions?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you.
Let's see here. Okay. Athletic stadium improvements, they requested that $1.4 million be added back from the PAB interim. Driveway and parking lots, an additional $1 million. Sustainability initiatives, they requested that another $1 million be added on. Okay, the school bus facility lot, they reduced their number by $4.591 million. So they've had some updated information come in, and they have a significant savings realized on that capital project.
So that's moving from 9.1 million to 4.1 million.
To $4.6 million is what they need. Old Mill Middle School North, we've had some impact fees applied there and some restructuring going on. Old Mill Middle School South. So although this doesn't affect affordability on this sheet, one of the give backs they gave was $1 million, and this was in PPI bonds. So PPI bonds went back into that, that very set amount that Board of Education has, and then it was reallocated somewhere else. So, so we were able to recognize some affordability on that capital project. So there's no adjustment here. It's tied to actually this capital project here. Tyler Heights, there was a reversion of $100,000 give back. Crofton Area High School, they actually had $900,000 in give back, but we could only take 797 of it in pay-go. The bonds were too old for us to get, kind of claw back. So we kind of had to spread the give back between impact fees and pay-go. Old Mill Middle School, Old Mill West High School had a $2 million reversion. Those ended up being PPI bonds. So again, I've had to take the adjustment out of PPI and I reallocated it to Old Mill Middle School North. So that we were able to realize the savings on the county side. Hillsmere had a savings of, a reversion of $300,000. So the net impact of all of what I just presented to you is an increase of $112,000.
Okay, so let me try to summarize what you just told us. Just to make sure, because all the board members, we hear all these numbers, but let me try to put it in easier terms. By reducing Ruth Parker Eason out to starting in fiscal year 2031.
Yes.
That freed up $48 million.
Yeah, let me just, actually it was $20 million. There's probably other funding sources tied to it. So from an affordability standpoint, by pushing Ruth Parker Eason out to fiscal year 31, there was a savings of $20.4 million.
Okay, savings of 20, but it reduced the Department of Ed's request by 48 million. So what you've done is given all the different cuts that we had, you've allocated that 20 million on all those projects we just talked about, so they get their full funding on all the projects and push out Ruth Parker Eason. Correct?
Yeah, there's kind of two things going on here. There's the Ruth Parker Eason. It's a new capital project, not previously approved, and they've agreed to push that out to fiscal year 21. So there's a savings of $20.4 million. Then there's the other scenario where we have all the give backs, all the capital projects that are slated to close or will be closing within the next year or so, they're giving money back. And then they've taken that give back and then they've applied it to those capital projects that we just went through, like the pre-K, the security, things like roof replacement, things like that. They've taken that give back and reallocated it. So the net impact of the reversions and the reallocation is $112,000. The adjustment to Ruth Parker Eason, as I mentioned, is $20.4 million. Does that answer your question for you?
So that's good that takes care of Board of Education, right?
Yeah, yes. We sat down for several hours to
Are all
come
the
up
board
with
members
something.
okay with the Board of Ed? Do we need to discuss any more projects with that, or we're okay with that? Okay.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay. So we have to get to the exciting part because I do have some good news and I have a graphic. I've been dying to show it. So that's why I'm like, let's start with general county class. Now, this touches two things. So in general county class, we have this YMCA financial contribution of $1 million. Okay.
What page?
That is on page 1, I believe. Let me just double check here.
Yes. Yeah, you're good.
Okay. All right, let me go back. Okay, so originally the request was for $1 million of a financial contribution to put toward the new YMCA that they're looking to build in Millersville. And at the end, if you recall, there was some additional information coming in about the Millersville Library. And there was some conversation about being able to combine and realize some savings because of this potential partnership between the YMCA and the libraries. And it's looking really good. So this also takes into account that we've actually removed Millersville Library from, let me scroll down, just scroll down, sorry. Okay, we've actually removed that from the capital budget. And we're working with the YMCA. There's a 2-year plan to be able to put the library right next to the Y. And let me pull up my graphic. Ta-da! So this is, and David Braun might be able to speak to this better than I can, but I believe it is like near West Benfield Boulevard and Veterans. And this is a really rough schematic, but this is kind of generally what they're looking to do. And so by, hooking up with the YMCA, what's going to happen is they're going to manage the capital project, and then the county is going to contribute $25 million toward the project. So let me go back to this here. So remember in the beginning when I told you this $150 million went down by $12.5 million. That is the first year financial contribution that will be made to the YMCA, and that is going to be done on the operating side. And it's done on the operating side because the capital, it's not our asset. The land, is not our asset, and they're managing the project. So the financial contribution is going to be $12.5 million in fiscal year 26, and then there's going to be another $12.5 million in fiscal year 27. So in a sense, this project is still moving forward. It's just moving forward in a different way. And again, I don't have a ton of information on it, but it's very, very promising. And like I said, they I think like within 2 years they were talking about being able to have something breaking ground. I maybe David Braun could speak to that. But again, I just wanted to show my graphics. Sorry. I'm like,
Great.
yay.
And I am going to clarify, we're not going to see Millersville Library on our capital side in the future.
Correct.
Okay.
Right. But the county is still putting money in. It's going to be on the operating side. So that's why our affordability number went down. And that's why your PAB interim number, changed. So again, a couple things going on there, but I mean, they were really excited about it. I mean, it was really cool. So that's a good piece of news.
Very good.
Very cool.
And then another little administrative change to parking garage of $250,000. There was some parking garage funding that was in there, and we're not able to utilize it in fiscal year 26. So I'm just putting in PAYGO to make that capital project whole from prior year funding. So that's just one of those little administrative things that end up happening. So that's it for the C class. Moving on to public safety. There was an increase to fire. Wait, let me get a page number for you. That is on page 6, I believe. Oh, I'm pretty click happy here. Sorry, let me just get the project number and go back here.
It's not bad, public safety.
Okay, so it's actually on page 8 because there was no requested funding. However, the department has come forward and is requesting $150,000 to do a feasibility study for a 4th bay at Odenton VFD. So that has been baked into this request. Moving down to new police CID. There was a savings realized of $98,000. But we can't really recognize that savings in fiscal year 26 because the project actually closed June 30th, 2025. So the savings, it's handled a little differently. So this is just me correcting that in the fiscal year 26 budget, because we certainly cannot show a project in fiscal year 26 that was closed in 25. So that's like $98,000. Arundel Fire Station replacement, the only thing we did was pull the $2.7 million from fiscal year 29 to 26 for the land. So it's the same price. There's no change in the appropriation request. It's just moving a phase forward. Jessup Fire Station, I actually applied some tentative LDC VLT funding in there of about $4.3 million. You know, we don't have final numbers yet, but this is a placeholder.
Yeah.
And so that concludes the changes for the F class, public safety. The total is about a $4 million reduction. And again, that's basically the VLT funding on Jessup Fire Station. That pretty much is the good chunk of that. So does anyone have any questions? Oh.
Is Jessup Fire Station professional or volunteer? I assume that they're professional. They're county.
I believe they're professional.
Okay. That's what I thought.
Yeah, I mean, yeah. Okay, moving on to recreation and parks, and this is where I'm going to add back South River Farm Park. So let's do that right now.
Because we gotta get there.
Bear with me, I'm scrolling fast, so just don't look at the monitor and make your eyes go a little crazy.
So we're on page 10.
Okay. I just want to do this so I don't forget. Okay, and so that is P class.
P 625.
P625.
Mm-hmm.
What page?
Oh, 625.
000625.
So let me just, this is just a formula here, and that's just spreadsheet. Okay, so right now, almost $1 million is being added back into fiscal year 26.
Thank you.
Yep.
Okay, moving on. The dairy farm. Again, this is similar to the new police CID. This project actually closed June 30th, 24. And in their request, they thought that they could recognize the savings in 26, and you can't. So this is me just cleaning up fiscal year 26 to make it more accurate with regard to the level of affordability that we have. Okay, West County Swim Center. There are no changes to it. The adjustment I'm making is because there has been, and again, LDC has not presented formally, but there's been a lot of conversation about West County Swim Center and working with them to help support that project. And this adjustment takes a little bit of prior year LDC funding and moves it over to the West County Swim Center in fiscal year 26. So there's no change in the level of appropriation. It's just a little bit of funding structure change. And Edgewater improvements. So Erica was indicating that the POS funding that they had tentatively on there, she doesn't think they're going to get it. So this is just me making her request whole and swapping out POS and putting in bonds. So the net impact on the Rec and Parks class was $1,022,000. Again, the bulk of that being Edgewater. Does anyone have any questions on the like
Is it now
P
2
class?
million? Sorry, is it now 2 million since we added, South River back?
Oh, yes. Oh, function F2. Oh, yes. Thank you.
My pleasure.
Oh, yes.
Then
Good
they look at
stuff.
them.
It happens when you insert above the project class. So, it's not something that normally happens, but yes, ooh, 2 million, yay. Stuff, okay. Okay, so any other questions on the P class? Okay, moving on to roads and bridges. And I think this is where David Braun might be able to provide some clarification. But there were 2 changes to Route 2 and Route 3 improvements. Basically, we've had to add about $2.9 million of county funding to that capital project. And I don't know if David's available to speak.
Yeah, on both of those projects, Route 2 and Route 3, over the last month, we've gotten updated cost estimates and agreements from SHA based on their current project design. So we went through and checked with the budgets, and in order to sign those agreements, we need the additional funding to be able to fund them for the project.
David, okay, question on Route 2.
Thank you, Lawrence. We appreciate your
Signing.
availability. Thanks.
Sorry.
Thanks, David. Okay, let's.
Route 2, we're in 30% design. We're talking about for the expansion of Route 2 from 50 to 10.
No, this is only to Arnold.
Right, eventually it'll be to 10, but right now we're starting at 50 to Arnold Road. They're
Yes,
in 30% design.
yes.
So is this money going towards construction or design?
This is for, well, yes. It's actually there's 3 steps we do in these agreements typically. They have a preliminary design, then we add the final design, and then we add construction. In this case, they're adding the utility relocations, the right-of-way costs, and construction all into this one agreement.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay, the next one is USNA Bridge Area Bike Improvement. And to be honest with you, I don't know why we increased it $370,000. David, do you know what the situation was on USNA?
Hang on, give me a minute. That's not ringing a bell.
I know, like I don't have any comments in there either, so well,
It's probably for lighting. Lighting is a big
Well, we
deal
do
on that
support
bridge.
that because we want to make sure that we can get that bike trail connects through Annapolis. That's important. Because it kind of just ends right there.
well, while he's looking at that one, I'll just go through Blue Water, Milestone. There was a correction in the funding structure, and so I've actually had to add $33,600. Has to do with impact fees and when you can use them, and bonds, and there's like a time limit there. So I've made a small little adjustment there to Blue Water to keep it whole. I'll just keep going here. Oh, Riva Road Shared Use Path. There was a grant in fiscal year 27. And I didn't have support documentation for that, so I did not list it as a grant. I've moved it over as bonds. Until we have the award in hand. That's an adjustment we can make later on. But I just feel better, using county funding at this juncture. Until we have the award in hand. So that's the adjustment there.
And Naomi, I think that's the same story with the USNA bridge area. There was a future grant shown in there that we were removing.
Oh, ooh. Okay. Oh, Safe Routes to Transit, the FY25 state grant fell through, so to make them whole, I've had to add $400,000 to Safe Routes to Transit. So the total change with regard to roads and bridges was about an add of $4.7 million. So basically updated cost estimates and some cleanup there. Are there any other questions on roads and bridges? Okay. We did Board of Education. Boop.
We just added 4.7 million. We could go back and find that someplace else.
And she's already storing in her packet.
Okay.
Oh, and then the library. So that's it. So if looking at this sheet, if you go back to our affordability tab, it puts us here at a $5.8 million under, which is
Yeah,
great.
but on-
There's still a lot of information that needs to come in between now and May 1st. Well, actually, April 12th, because it takes us 2 weeks to put the book together. And so I really like to keep that number, as under as possible, so that should there be any other updated cost estimates or just things that come up, we have a little wiggle room there to make sure we're financially structured well. So that is this scenario. Are there adjustments or modifications you would like to make to this? So, for your final recommendation.
Isn't there?
Do you have any?
Oh, you do.
No, we
We
did.
already did hers.
Oh. I missed that. Okay.
Van, are you there? Did you have any other recommendations to the final recommendation?
No, not at this time.
Okay, with that, Naomi, I think you've done a great job and I like the numbers and comfortable where we're at.
Thank you.
I'd like to get a recommendation, a motion from the board to accept the changes that were presented before us. And to, accept that number as our final recommendation.
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Okay, motion's been made to accept the recommendations that have been presented for us. That gets us to a $5.8 million under affordability. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay.
Aye. Any nays? Motion carries. Good job, Naomi.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
And Naomi, do you expect, I know things are going to change, but I know the state of Maryland is voting on their budget this week.
Good Lord.
And I know they're talking, there was supposed to be 100 cuts. Don't know what that really means for us, but do you expect to see a lot of cuts from the state that we don't know of right now?
So from a capital perspective, we don't have a lot in this fiscal year 26 budget from state. Like there's almost nothing. So there's really not a lot to cut. I mean, really, there's not a lot of state funding. I have heard that there actually might be a couple of other little grants put toward Board of Education projects. I don't know if those will come, I mean, a lot of times these little things pop up toward the end, but I don't think that is going to be a significant impact to this budget in a negative way.
Okay. Any other comments from the board?
Mm,
What is that say?
Discussion point. What we want to highlight in that.
Yeah, Jessica did send out some highlights on that for a deliberation letter. But Naomi, before we let you go, one of the questions or comments that I would like to make is that we're going to be okay right now this year for the way we've done it, but I'm not sure in the future for next year's budget that we really feel comfortable at the end to say, okay, we're going to cut every project in such and such 5% or 10%. So I think it's unfair for some of those projects that are being cut and you feel this way.
Yeah.
To not give them their due diligence and go over those projects one by one. I know it means more time, but I think in the future, we're gonna have to take a little bit more time and look at some of these projects and not just overall cut down the, everything at 10% or whatever the number was we agreed upon last time.
Yeah. So what's happened is you can see it here very easily, like clearly fiscal year 26, 313 million, fiscal year 27, 386. It's a Board of Education. We have like the 911, like we've got some really, really big projects, but then you can see in the out years, it does start to come into line. So yes, I mean, I just need to get through some of those big schools and yes. The out years definitely need to be recalibrated a little bit.
It was helpful this year that the budget office and Chris and you went back to the departments and said, okay, give us your basics. No fluff, no new projects, if at all possible, and rank order, because we were so over budget that it did help us to know what projects were in rank order, and that we didn't look like we cut everything. They cut before they came to us,
Right.
which was
Yeah.
helpful.
I think it
Agreed.
would be interesting. I think there's two trains of school of thought on that. And I've had some other discussions about that, and that it did make our job easier because they had prioritized. It might be interesting to see, not that we all have to go through it in any detail, what fell off that they really, what was kind of in the background? Because it, what if it is something that our community feels very strongly about? And yet, for whatever reason, the staff, I'm recognizing that it gives the staff a lot of, a lot more power to make those priority decisions. So,
However, you went to the town hall meetings and they're very vocal on their certain projects. And, there are certain community groups that are very vocal all the time.
squeaky wheel.
Yeah.
And please don't get me wrong, we appreciate you guys making our job easier, and stuff. I just kind of, it's some part of me is like, well, is there anything back there that's out of the box that, maybe one day we want to try to push up a little bit more, but
We'll never know.
apparently not, not this year.
Naomi, thank you very much for all your hard work. Once again, you just are amazing. And, thanks
I
again.
appreciate it. I
Yeah.
appreciate it.
Jessica, we're gonna move to, make some recommendations of the priorities and highlights for our letter. One of the first things that come to mind that, I think was so very important and very creative is that the YMCA, after we decided I don't know whether we cut them part of it out. All of a sudden, and the Millersville Library, I mean, we want both, is that now they've come up with a private-public partnership. Inside the box, how that can work. So I really want to highlight that was something that was brought to our attention in the middle of our deliberations. And it's just wonderful how, if you think outside the box, things can happen.
And the West County Swim Center would be a perfect example of
Could
more
be,
private,
yeah. Could be, yeah.
It's in the
public
works.
partnerships.
So that's my comment. What other projects does any board members have that they think are?
I would say, I just remember Chief Wolford talking about the expense of new fire trucks and how expensive they are and how the buildings need to be adapted for the fire trucks, because there are a lot of buildings. We're looking at Jessup, we're looking at Cape St. Clair, we're looking at Early Heights. That's only on my side that I know, all need new fire stations to accommodate these fire trucks. And the fire trucks now are going from 1 million to 2 million a piece.
Wow.
that's public safety we need.
Yeah, so just to be clear, the apparatus is still on the operating side.
Okay.
But the fire stations obviously are on the capital side, yes.
I thought there was one apparatus that was funded.
There was one, yeah, there was one that.
Yeah, so it was a new capital project and it didn't move forward. But it is being funded on the operating side.
Operating side, okay. Yeah, another thing, with the cybersecurity issue, I would like to put in our letter is that we fully funded the, IT request, correct?
We did, and we had asked if there was any update and did they want to take the opportunity to increase that, and they didn't come back apparently
So
to do
just
that.
to note that we, any request, we really look at the IT and the security, the infrastructure stuff very importantly, because we all understand how important it is, because when it's not there, you can't function. And we have fully funded that.
I think also the staff did a really good job of focusing on the Plan 2040 and recognizing areas that had not been served as equitably in the past, and we still maintain. We kept our promise to support and revisit those and really try to bring those up into a more equal status and funding. So
Brooklyn.
So, I think that, and also just, some of the denser areas and keeping, helping them to grow their green space and their recreation space. That's a good thing.
Okay.
We got to fund a number of land conservation efforts this year because it was the year to do so. Some years we don't have any that are in the work, and this year we actually had some really promising transactions in process.
And Jessica, I think it's important to note that whenever a land preservation project is brought before us, we really understand that they are, at that time, there's one opportunity to fund those projects and you only get one shot to find that property. So we really do understand, and we try to fund every land preservation request that ever comes before us, because you get that one shot, and we don't want to miss that opportunity. I think it's very important to bring that up. I guess anything else?
Oh, no, Ben?
No?
Okay, if anybody has any other comments and they want to send them to Jessica, feel welcome to, and then Jessica will send out a draft, we'll review it, and then we'll sign off and move forward.
Okay.
I think with that, administrative updates.
We briefly touched on this at the beginning of the call, but it might have been before we were like open for sure. So I just wanted to let everybody know that I don't anticipate us meeting much the rest of this spring or this summer. We'll meet maybe towards the middle of the summer or the end of the summer, once, maybe twice, to go over the MVP annual report we usually do every summer. Potentially to go over the hazard mitigation plan if it's ready. But for the most part, you guys get a nice spring and summer vacation after we work you very hard. And then we'll come back in the fall for our region plans where things will pick up again, and we'll be meeting probably weekly again. So I really appreciate y'all's flexibility and your willingness to be part of this board and be part of our crazy schedule. Thank you.
We'll get to talk to you soon for those to hold. Those are big important meetings for the plan.
Yeah, try to, for those region plans, to get that out as soon as possible, because us older people might have vacations planned.
Another Mickey Mouse cruise with family.
Universal Studios next month.
Ooh.
Oh, next
So-
month, there you go.
And I need to get a second job to buy those tickets.
I heard somebody's going to Disney and they have a Disney planner.
Yes.
You
they-
hire a
you
Disney
hire a
planner?
For the day, yeah.
No, to get
Oh,
the
yeah.
tickets
Oh, yeah.
and do
Yeah.
everything else, because tickets open like 6 AM and all of them get on the website at once to try and buy 11 tickets to get on a ride.
So,
Yeah,
oh,
it's
but
crazy.
what about Michael? How long is Michael?
Oh,
My
yeah.
transition,
Oh,
that's, we're still kind of figuring that out as we kind of go through, process. They're currently, hiring for the position that I previously held. So we'll see as that person comes on and kind of how staff gets allocated. So by next time we meet, we'll probably have that dialed in.
Okay.
So is it
you have
possible
to come back.
you can do both?
Yeah, I could still be in the role as
Role,
the administrator
yeah.
with my role at preservation as well.
Okay,
I was
great.
thought about that might be useful to do since I'm not directly involved in the region plans, because there's gonna be so many meetings coming up with you guys for region plans, that staff's already overtaxed with keeping meetings, so bringing somebody else that might be useful to help me say if that role falls.
Good.
We'll see how that goes.
Don't leave us high and dry.
So where is are you gonna move with the office? The new office is in Millersville, right? Isn't it, don't,
I'm just, my physical seat is just moving down the hall. Right.
oh, is it? Okay. Okay, cause I thought that there was I guess that's where they're gonna put all the stuff for the
I think cultural
agriculture,
resources.
yeah. Weren't they gonna put it in the Millersville?
The Glen Burnie Library, yeah, the archaeology lab is doing a joint project with the Glen Burnie Library, and so the archaeology lab will be there, as well as the Joan Cass Beck, I believe is her name, the library that's named after someone, with a lot of important cultural resource books.
Okay, but the department's still here.
As far as I know, yeah.
Okay, got it. Sorry, I was moving you on down the road before you needed to go. Sorry.
Okay, nothing else administratively?
Chair, I move we adjourn.
Well, I want to just say hi to Edward Edmonds. Ed, I haven't heard from you. Hi, how are you? And we're glad you're here.
I did see him briefly earlier.
He was-
Yeah, he was here briefly. I think he might have.
Yeah,
He
he
joined
might
right
not be
after
there. I
the
just want to
roll call.
recognize that
Yeah,
he's there,
yeah.
so.
Yeah.
Okay, so with that, there's been a motion to adjourn. I need a second.
Second.
Aye.
Oh, no, Michael gets you get to second. Make your first motion. Come on.
I second.
Michael seconds, all in favor,
Yeah.
aye.
Aye.
This meeting's adjourned.
All right.
See, we can't